We've got, as you've seen on the program, an outstanding group of speakers that we're all really looking forward to hearing about and having a chance to talk about the subject today of libraries, higher education in a time of truth and reconciliation. My name's Kevin Stranick, and I'm a librarian with Simon Fraser University, and I'm also a member of the continuing education group at BCLA's Academic Librarians section. Before we go any further, though, I wanted to acknowledge the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people on whose traditional territories we live, work, and play. I'd also like to say thanks to my colleagues on the planning group for putting this together. Lindsay Tripp from Langara, thank you so much. Sarah Dupont from UBC. And Andra Ivanchuk from the BCLA Continuing Education Committee. Ali Moore, where are you? There you are, Ali Moore. And Ryan Kyle, you're here somewhere too. There you are. Thanks very much to all of you for all of the work that went into putting this together. And of course, I'd like to thank the sponsors who have financially contributed to this and allowed it to happen. BCLA's Professional Development Institute, Simon Fraser University, and Langara College. Thanks to all of them very much. So I'm looking forward to hearing all of the discussion we're going to have today. I know that all of you are. We're going to have a really valuable time together. We're going to have our speakers come on. After each speaker or group of speakers, we'll have some time for questions. So without any further ado, let's get going. We can get started, and it's my pleasure to introduce Shelley Joseph. Shelley's the Public Outreach Lead and Cultural Advisor for Reconciliation Canada. Thank you, Shelley.
Gela Kesla, Nugu am Hekwa Gela Okwa, Latin Lacha Hegums, Umpus Quinquin Kuligidzi. My English name is Shelley Joseph. I received a name at Appalachian in 1981 from my father, who is Chief Robert Joseph. My Kwakwala name is Hekwagila Okwa. I am the youngest of 5. Both of my parents went to Indian Residential School in Alert Bay. My father was there for 11 years, and my mother was there for 4 years, and then she moved to, she came here to the Lower Mainland into boarding school. So again, she still wasn't home. She was living with other families and down here away from home. I've been really, and I know how blessed and how lucky I am that my dad is Chief Robert Joseph. And I get to work with him on a daily basis. And what an amazing journey just that has been since 2012 when we formed Reconciliation Canada. In 2012, my father was diagnosed with cancer, and he was lying in his hospital bed at a point where we didn't know the prognosis and you know how serious it was or what was going to happen with his life. And he called my sister into his bedside, and he had a vision, a dream, literally, that 50,000 people were walking through the streets of Vancouver in unity. People from all walks of life, all backgrounds, were all walking together in unity. And he said to my sister, "Whatever happens to me, I want this walk to happen. Promise me you'll make this walk happen." No pressure, Karen. So she quickly formed Reconciliation Canada with a couple of friends and a few of us sitting around her kitchen table. And by September 21st, 2013, after the very last day of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission here in Vancouver, we had the Walk for Reconciliation. Was anybody there? Yeah. The wettest day I've ever known in my whole life. And I always think, we have a short video, and every time I see it, I get choked up, thinking about that morning and how my dad must have felt when he first stepped on stage. After everything he went through in residential schools, being torn from his family, being brought to a place where my father never spoke English, to such a cruel, dehumanizing environment, to be sexually abused, physically abused, and all of the abuses that you can imagine for a tiny 6-year-old boy to experience that for 11 years. He didn't know what to do with it after residential school, and he became angry. He turned to alcoholism. I was born into an alcoholic home. But both of my parents sobered up in 1977, so that's a really long time considering the time they were in. In my eyes, my parents, everybody's parents are their heroes, but my parents were true pioneers in what we can be, despite what our past tells us we should be. My parents have both fought really hard to grow and to keep growing. And a lot of that is stepping outside of their comfort zones and saying, we can do this. I can do this if you help me. So for my father to go through all of that, everything he's experienced, yeah, he has every right to be pissed off and angry and think the world owes him. But he's not like that. All my life growing up, he said, I want you to have more than what I had. And I get that now. When I was a kid, I was like, whatever, Dad. But I get it now. I have kids of my own. So when we were standing at the start line of the walk, and it was reported that 70,000 people came, what that must have felt like for him. To know that 70,000 people cared about what happened to him and everybody who went through residential schools. All of this time, most survivors think that nobody cares because nobody's ever believed their story until this time. At this time here in Canada, it's unparalleled to any other time ever for all of us all together. Right now in Canada, we have the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and its 94 recommendations. Has everybody read the 94 recommendations? If you haven't, I encourage you to read them. I think it'll give you a snapshot into the reality of most First Nations peoples and how we exist in this time in Canada. We have the UNDRIP that Canada has finally agreed to be a part of. I think we're like one of the last countries in the world to open up UNDRIP, the United Nations Indigenous Declaration for Human Rights. All those words in some order. Even Trudeau himself, he's the first prime minister who's saying what he's saying, that he wants a nation-to-nation relationship. That's never been said by another leader of Canada. He wants to implement the 94 recommendations. Nobody, well, of course they weren't in existence, but for him to know what they are and to want to do that to help the First Nations people in Canada is amazing. And that he wants the inquiry into the murdered and missing Indigenous women in Canada, that's huge. That's huge. So we have all of these things and so much more. The Daniels decision that just happened. All of these things and so much more going on in Canada right now. The doors are wide open for all of us to walk through together. And it can't just be Indigenous people working on reconciliation. We need you. We need everybody. Canada is known worldwide for being the friendly country. But yet we have this dark past that hasn't truly been acknowledged. The true history of Canada, our shared history in Canada. And I think once people can really embrace what our history is, Canada's history, then we can move on and start to build these new relationships moving forward, new understanding, new respect, so that now my children and your children and our grandchildren can feel value in our country. I didn't feel valued as a little girl where I grew up. And I don't say that for you to feel sorry for me, because I don't feel sorry for me. I am who I am because of what I experienced. I can stand here and talk to you from my truth and how I've grown and become strong. And I've only grown and become strong because there were people in my life who held up this really gentle mirror and said, I see your value. You know, amongst all the racism and the prejudice and all the isms that aren't good for us. There were people who just said, I believe in you. I grew up in a small town. We were the only First Nations family. My father moved because he wanted us to have a good education. Because of his experience in residential school, He never taught us our language. He thought it wouldn't be any good for us. This was in the 70s. And I always said, well, how come you, because he's fluent. He's a fluent speaker still today. And back then I said, well, how come you didn't teach us our language? He said, it's going to do you no good in the real world. You need to get a good education so you can get a good job and have all the things that you need to raise your own family. And of course, through his growth, he knows now how important our language is, and he's done everything he can to help teach the language. But I know now education is really important, and I'm so glad that he held on to that when we were kids. And because nobody's going in anywhere. Some people have some kind of fallacy that the Indians will take over the country, but we're all here together, and I want us to be all here together as human beings that we are. When I first started with Reconciliation Canada, my first community engagement initiative was an elders gathering. We invited elders from all different backgrounds, not just First Nations people, and we sat for 2 days to talk about the language of reconciliation. And what came out of that was, although there was never a word in any of the ancient languages, like there were First Nations, Jewish, Chinese, Japanese people that came, although there was never the word reconciliation, there were stories and songs and ceremonies that all spoke to the values, to human values, and all of those were the same around the world. All of them, in those ancient traditions and teachings, we all have these same moral values. So even though we were there in our grandest diversity, celebrating one another's differences in the diversity, in the very end, we were celebrating our common humanity at the end of those 2 days. And that's what I carry forward, was from all of these elders who came to sit together, was that at the core of all of us, we're all the same. Our Reconciliation Canada, our mantra, if you will, is Namwayut. In my language, that means we are all one. And once we can get to a place of understanding that we are all the same, we are all one, then I think all of our children, my children, your children, and our grandchildren are going to be able to just be born and be who they are without having fear, without being condemned for their color of their skin or, the language that's spoken at home, but just being celebrated for that diversity and being celebrated and lifted up to that individual's optimum potential. And that's my goal. That's why I keep doing the work that I do. Of course, to honor my parents and all the relatives that I know that have gone to residential schools, but my hope is that my children and my grandchildren will never suffer the way that so many children have. And I want that for my children, and I want that for your children. So I encourage all of you to remember when you're sitting across boardrooms or meetings and stuff that you're meeting with the president of this and the CEO of that, but that person across the table is human. The person that you're helping is human, and they have a story that you know nothing about, but just to be open enough to know that they have a story and to treat them from that place of respect and love. I think love is really the key word that a lot of people are scared to say for what reasons I don't know, but I believe reconciliation really is about love. If you can stand and see a homeless person on the street and in some quiet way just love them where they're at, how that will change their life from being condemned further for how they exist in the world in that moment. But I think we really need to grow love. Everywhere I go now, most of you know the commercial about the old lady in the hot sauce. I say love, put that stuff on everything, everywhere you go. So thank you for having me here today. The organizers, I know how much work goes into putting an event together, and especially for one that's so important that involves everybody all together. So thank you for having me here today.
Thanks so much, Shelley.